So by law, we're supposed to be teaching things about our experience, Black Americans, African Americans, however you want to identify yourself. So the district needs to do a better job. Blender, or I think it's Blender. My understanding is that it's not being implemented as effectively as it should. Now, I don't want to represent like I'm a subject matter expert as to the why, but that's definitely something that needs to get done. So what I propose is that speaking with those area experts, those teachers who are interested in seeing more Black history, African American history, come to the table. Let's talk about how we can fix this system so that we see more true history in that regard, not just the propaganda that the governor wants us to teach to our students, but the true, a more fuller understanding of our history, because it's better for all of our kids, not just our Black kids, to see Black faces in those pages. That's something, just as a practical matter, that needs to get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, you'll have 1 minute. Do you need me to repeat the question for you?
Yeah, please.
Okay, and Monica, whenever you're ready, I'll first start. Do you have plans to make sure, or what are your plans to make sure that Black history is not erased from school curriculum?
Okay, so I don't accept that we just go along with the law in this respect. You know, I said in my opening that public education is under attack, and that's specific to Black kids. When you hear the word "stop woke," that means stop Black, right? We can't be ashamed to call that out, and we have to make sure that we challenge that law. I've been one who said throughout this whole campaign that I believe that "stop woke" is unconstitutionally void for vagueness. At least one court of appeals has agreed with me on that. I want to be on the front lines of fighting that battle from the dais by joining in that lawsuit if we're not already in it. Secondly, I see Ms. Range here. We've done a lot of work in implementing 1003 point whatever it is, I forget what it is. But she's the first director of African American history of the school district of Palm Beach County, and my former English teacher at North Shore. So we've got to enhance her former department, which is now run by Brian Knowles, and support them. And I will be one who will fight tooth and nail to make sure that they are supported and make sure that that history gets taught. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, are there any audience questions? If you have one, just raise your note card, and Yvonne Stubbs will collect that. While that is coming forth, I have a question for you both. Will you support County Question 2 pertaining to levying ad valorem taxes to continue to fund expenditures and certain functions for our local school district? This question will go to Mr. Smith first. Monica, let us know when you are ready to proceed.
Simple answer, yes.
Oh, wait. Monica, did she get the nod? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she gave the nod,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, simple answer, yes. I've said part of the reason why public education is under attack, and you got to understand the philosophy of Republicans in Tallahassee. What they've done is deem government as bad, and what they do is they starve it, right? They call it starving the beast. So they underfund government, they underfund programs, and that's why we've gotten less and less money from Tallahassee for the last 20-something years that Republicans have been in charge. That's just the truth. We got to tell it, and we got to let our voters know that, so that they have the information they need to make the decisions that they need to make. So yeah, I support, because we get constant underfunding. We're 49th in education spending in the third most populated state, which is ridiculous. So we've got to do more here on the local level, and the referendum does that. We don't want to lose the 740-something teachers and all the programs that money goes to support. So yeah, I support the referendum.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, will you support County Question 2 pertaining to levying ad valorem taxes to continue to fund expenditure and certain functions of the school district?
We have to. We're already at a deficit of roughly 400 teachers, and if that referendum fails, there are going to be countless other teachers. I've spoken to many of them who said, "Hey, if you all vote no and this doesn't pass, I'm out the front door." Teachers with 15 and 20 years experience, so we can't afford that in this current situation. I think it's also important to speak about a few things. I'm sure you all, I'm hoping that you all have taken time to look at all, if not the majority, if not all of the different debates and forums that we've spoken about. So in regard to the Stop Woke Act, I definitely was the first person who identified that, because that's what I do. We speak out on these social issues in our practice. And I stated from the beginning that it was void for vagueness. And after a while, I started hearing other persons in the campaign speak to that. But again, I want to go back to something, because this is not a test as far as who's the board member who knows the current most, because I would argue that my own opponent has said the most effective school board member is somebody who's never taught a day in her life, and that's Dr. Deborah Robinson. So it's not about whether you worked in the school system, which will determine whether you're an effective person. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
All right.
And you might as well continue to stand. I have two audience questions. You kind of spoke about culture wars. So this question is pertaining to culture wars. that have kind of come out of Tallahassee. What is your position in reference to the Don't Say Gay bill?
Well, I definitely don't think that. I think that parents should have the first option, sole option, in regards to discussing things of sexual orientation, sexual identity with their children. So I'm speaking honestly as a parent. I don't need teachers in school speaking to my children in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade about how they should see themselves or who they should be attracted to, as far as that goes. Now, obviously at a more appropriate age, and I'm thinking more the middle school age, when we know that these are things that children are dealing with, I think our school system would be negligent not to have that conversation with the child, irrespective of what's being taught at home. But in terms of those very early education years, K through 3, I don't think that we should be speaking about that in the schools. Thank you.
Do you need me to repeat the question for you, Mrs. Smith? Okay, Monica, whenever you're ready.
You know, I think that doesn't go far enough. You know, we got to stand up for everybody. You know, none of us are free unless we're all free. That's just the truth. So with respect to the Don't Say Gay bill, you know, it's creating a boogeyman. Nobody's telling. I've been a parent in this district for the last 17 years. I got a 20-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old. Nowhere during their education has anybody said to them anything about their sexuality in kindergarten through 3. That's a boogeyman that's a war that's being waged against gay and lesbian kids. And what it does is it marginalizes them, and we got to step up and speak to it. Because guess what, folks? There are gay people all across the spectrum. And if they get marginalized, the next group they're coming for is us. So we can't just sit down and act like this is okay. So no, I don't support Don't Say Gay. They're not doing this to our kids in K through 3. I'm of course in favor of appropriate sex education at appropriate ages. So thank you.
And our last audience question, Mr. Smith, I'll begin with you. What will you do to ensure that equity is being taught in all classrooms?
So when we talk about equity, I'm good. So when we talk about equity, that means that we make the system work for us, right? Because we've, you know, as black people in America, we've always said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to run twice as fast to get half as far. We teach our children, and we continue to teach our children that. But the point of equity is making sure that the system is also accountable to the historical inequities that have faced our children in our communities. So that means we meet children where they are and bless them according to what they need. So we do assessments on each kid, and where they lack, we provide. You know, where the curriculum doesn't give them what they need, we put that in the curriculum so that we engage them. That's what equity means. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Ferguson, do you need me to repeat the question for you?
No, I don't.
Monica, are you ready?
I feel like on this particular question, it's pretty much tomato, it's just being said kind of in a slightly different way. But in regard to equity, I think we need to be using the legal mechanisms in place, and we need to have persons who know how to do that. And also influence persons who might otherwise not necessarily want to come along and meet us in the middle, but get them to meet us in the middle because they realize that it's actually in the best interest of all children for us to have a more equitable system. This is just what I think. It doesn't take a minute to say that. I mean, any black person in their right mind would understand that the scales have never quite been even, but I would submit to you that we can't wait for them to become even before we really get out here and be proactive, which brings me back to why it's so important that we get out into the community and educate all persons so that our little children, by the time they come into school, are not just ready to be on par, but are ready to excel. Because again, children who start ahead tend to stay ahead. It's in the data. You can see it. I do a public record request. Over these last 20 plus years, you'll see it right here in Palm Beach County.
Thank you. All right, we have concluded the question and answer period for this particular race. We would now move to our candidate closing statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. Mr. Ferguson, you will go first whenever Ms. McCoy is ready.
So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I will say these forms are very difficult to try to answer in a minute. This is the most important political office in Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County School Board is, with all due respect, not city council or county commission. It's us, because we're the ones who can kind of lay the roadmap for success and in some instances failure by failing to do things that we should do for our children. And I think that's been part of the reason why our children in District 7 specifically, and also District 6 over in the Glades, let's not forget about what's not happening over there for them. I think that's why it's happening. It's important that we have somebody who can advocate for our children, but also can bring the credentials home, the things that we need home, the money, the resources, the teachers, and things of that nature. I heard it said earlier that we're going to start recruiting black males. I've heard Marsha Andrews and Dr. Robinson, with all due respect, say that they've been actively doing that and it's not working. So maybe we need to figure out some way to be more effective in terms of incentivizing black men such as myself to come and stay in the system. Again, I was a teacher. Most of you all know me. So you know that I taught school at Suncoast AP Chemistry, and I taught Algebra 1 at Palm Beach Lakes. And I left shortly after being at Palm Beach Lakes, and it was partly due to some of the culture there. Not this teacher here, she was an all-star, but there were persons there who I just could not abide being around because they were setting the ceiling too low for the students, and I rebuked that. So now I came back, and every single day of my 17 career, I've been fighting for the so-called little man and little woman, and I'll continue doing that if I'm your next school board member. You can look at the very divergent group of people who've endorsed me, and you can come to a conclusion that Edwin actually is the best person for this race. It's not about who can be the next school board attorney, but who can be the next school board member and do something different than what we've been doing thus far, because it ain't been working, folks, for the past 10 years. So again, I'm Edwin Ferguson. If you haven't made your decision, I humbly ask for your vote. If you have any questions for me, because I have to cut out of here shortly. I have another event down in Boynton, but you can reach me at 561-247-0567, 561-247-0567. Have a great night.
And Mr. Smith, you will have 2 minutes whenever Monica gives you the nod.
And thank you again. My name is Corey Smith. Vision, integrity, and experience. Those are the three qualities that are necessary for someone to represent this district. District 7 is unique. We go from Riviera to Delray on the east side of town through the historic communities in Palm Beach County, the historic black communities. We need somebody in this seat who knows what's going on in the school district. What sets me and Mr. Ferguson apart is our experience. My commitment, as stated by the Palm Beach Post, I'm the most committed, qualified, and experienced candidate in this race. My life demonstrates that. I don't have to give you a whole bunch of credentials. Just look at what I do. I've been a public defender, I've been a teacher, and I've been an education attorney for the last 20 years. I'm not out here chasing $1 million trying to chase ambulances. I'm out here trying to help the people. I've always tried to help the people. I've represented thousands in the criminal justice system, and I've done several cases or several hundred cases, written policies on the school board, written policies for schools around this state, negotiated bad charter schools out of this state, advocated on behalf of kids for the last 20 years. I'm a parent in this district, so I understand it from a parental perspective. Again, I told you I have elementary, middle, and high school kids. We're all in public schools right here in Palm Beach County. My middle guy right here goes to Roosevelt Middle. So we have to find ways to engage our kids, support our educational workforce, enhance school safety without militarizing our schools, and then we need to enforce a school-to-workforce pipeline. That is the most important thing that's going to affect our kids here in District 7. We need to build synergy with the port in Riviera Beach so that our kids in Riviera understand that there are industries that go onto that port that they can take a part of when they graduate high school, and we need to implement programs in our high schools that serve the students in Riviera Beach, which is where I grew up, and that's why I know this, because I didn't know it growing up, so that they can engage in those educational activities. Corey Smith, School Board, District 7, thank you.
Thank you both very much for joining us and for participating. I know you may not have been able to share everything that you wanted to, but we do encourage our audience to visit them on Facebook, their websites, to get all the additional information before you cast your ballot. Thank you, gentlemen. You all have a great evening. Okay. All right. We will now transition to the Florida House of Representatives, District 88. The incumbent being Representative Javante Edmonds and his opponent, Ms. Ross Stevens. As they approach the table, just a reminder to our audience that if you have questions, we ask that you jot them on the note card, and Ms. Yvonne Stubbs will collect that information at the appointed time. Again, we will continue with the 2-minute opening statements, 1 minute to respond to each question, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to give a closing statement. And we will begin with our opening statements. We will begin first with Ms. Roz Stevens whenever she is ready and when Ms. Monica is ready with the timer. She'll give you the nod when she's ready, Ms. Roz.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Roz Stevens, and I'm running for State Representative, District 88, which we're all sitting in right now. Listen, I was born and raised in West Palm Beach, grew up in this community. In fact, I was baptized in this church at 9 years old. So there are a lot of people around in this community that I know. And one of the things that really concerns me why I am running is that we are descending into an economic crisis. The last 2 years, 3 years with COVID has been terrible on our community. It's been terrible on our pocketbooks. And we are not anytime soon getting our lives back pre-COVID. It is getting worse and worse. We're working harder just to get poorer. And I really can't stand to see that. One of the things I can quote Martin Luther King is that he said, our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about the things that affect us. And we can't be silent anymore. We have to speak up. And one of the things that I want to speak up, one of the things I want to do is go to Tallahassee and bring back relief for working families. Gas tax, property tax, affordable housing. There are so many things to do for this community that needs to be done without picking fights with the current leadership, because that's not changing anytime soon. But thank you very much, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmonds, you will have 2 minutes to introduce yourself once the timekeeper is ready.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Javante Edmonds, and I'm proud to serve you as your current state representative for District 88. Before I tell you about what I've actually done as a state representative, I always like to talk about what I've done when I did not have a title. We always are looking for titles, and people think you need a title to actually do work. Most people know me here for my nonprofit, Suits for Seniors. Suits for Seniors is an 8-week course at about 10 out of 12 Title I schools. We help kids with financial literacy, leadership, go to college, get into a career, and become entrepreneurs, and then we give them all brand new tailored suits. We've been able to serve 1,600 students. We have a 100% high school graduation rate, and I've also given out $75,000 in scholarships to make sure kids get to post-secondary success. After that, I worked in the Criminal Justice Commission, where my only responsibility was to reduce the jail population for those who look like me and you. I'm also an author. I've written 3 children's books. The question was about literacy earlier for the school board. I wrote those books to make sure that we can increase 3rd grade literacy and make sure our kids have access to books and want to be readers. Now, as a state rep, which I'm super proud of being, as the youngest male state representative in the state of Florida, making history, I'm proud because I fought for water quality, making sure that we can have clean water in my district. I fought for affordable housing. I fought for fully funding education. Right now, we pay our teachers 49 out of 50 in the United States. And we're working hard to increase teachers' pay. And what I'm most proud of right now is that I just recently, I don't know if you saw it, yesterday at Riviera Beach, we gave Riviera Beach $1 million to clean up their water and make sure that they can have clean and healthy water. I've only been elected for 6 months. I've had multiple job fairs. I've had multiple farm shares. So just not passing laws, but I'm making sure people are fed. I'm making sure people have jobs. And I'm sure you all just got my healthcare flyer. So we're also having a whole healthcare event. So it's not just about having a title as a state representative, but it's about making impact. Thank you.
And Mr. Edmonds, because we'll go back and forth between you two, this first question, I'll begin with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Several voters have been deemed ineligible to vote due to strategic changes and voting requirements that adversely affect our community. How will you ensure that all voting rights are protected? And
Great. I mean, that's a great question. And we have our Republican colleagues really fighting to strip away what's the most important value, which is the right to vote. I had to argue on the floor when they tried to strip away the congressional seats that are being challenged through court today. I'm working with the leadership of the Republican Party, the leadership of the Democratic Party, and we're fighting to erase those laws that are taking away the rights to vote. Right now, we have some court cases, Senate Bill 90, that is in court. So the thing we are able to do as legislators, when we are debating these type of laws, we argue and debate on the floor, so it's taken to a lawsuit and making sure that those issues can be repealed. So I've been working with my colleagues to make sure that we can create a fair fight in the court system to reverse these laws that we are forced upon by our Republican colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, would you like for me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Several voters have been deemed ineligible to vote due to strategic changes to the voting requirements that adversely affect our community. How will you ensure that all voting rights are protected? And Monica, let us know when you're ready.
What concerns me is, yes, we want to protect our vote as American citizens. I want to make sure your vote counts. That's called election integrity. We shouldn't be afraid of the word integrity. We're in a church here. Integrity is important. I want to make sure every one of our votes counts. And I want to make sure the people who are counting it correctly, timely, efficiently. There's a lot of things that we can do to make the process better. There's nothing wrong with looking at efficiency, looking at transparency. That's what I want to see in the process. But there are so many other things that we could be putting our effort into. Again, economic crisis is upon us. We have to do something. We have to do more than just say, I fought for. We got to come back with results. That's what I'm telling y'all want to be about, is results.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, we'll begin with you. You just mentioned economics, so I'm going to pose that next question. What economic plans do you have for the community to ensure that money is returning or coming to Palm Beach County for jobs and small Black-owned businesses? And you'll have 1 minute to respond.
Excellent, excellent. I'm loving that. First of all, small business is so important. We were the school board candidates were talking about having that school to pipeline. Especially Mr. Ferguson was talking about the entrepreneurial spirit, and I want to see more of that in our school systems. One of the things we need to not just put people and introduce our students into the entrepreneurial spirit, we need to make sure that we get them off the ground. There needs to be the things in place that the legislature can provide to help that happen. Small Black businesses, there need to be more of them. There used to be plenty back when I was growing up. My family came from a small Black business. So I want to see more of that. I will do what I can to get that into place with the legislature.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmonds, the question is to you. Do you need me to repeat it?
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. What economic plans do you have for the community to ensure that money is returning and coming to Palm Beach County for jobs and small Black-owned businesses?
Thank you for that question. And as I said in my beginning statement, it's not always about the title. I am glad to be your state representative. But I serve on the board for the Black Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County. I also serve on the board for the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce. So what I do in my capacity as a board member is connect business owners to money, resources, and the right handshake to get them a deal. As a state legislator, I'm fighting for higher wages right now. The rent is going up, insurance is going up, car insurance is going up, but the wages aren't going up. So I'm fighting so we can have higher wages so people can get paid. I'm also fighting so we can make sure we have more, working with the SBA and our federal government to making sure that we can have more business owners connected to that money. Right now, the access to money is one of the biggest issues for people who are trying to start their business, and those who are working 9 to 5, they just want a raise. And I fully agree, they all deserve it. If you've been working somewhere for 20 years and you ain't got a raise, that's a problem. And I'm fighting to make sure that we all get our raise and get the piece of the pie that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmonds, this question will come to you first. We're going to shift to education. What are your plans to ensure that Black history is not erased from the school curriculum?
Thank you. I think this is one of the most important topics, and I see this issue with various solutions. I mean, I have a Republican opponent, and although they are constantly fighting to ban the history, Black history in particular, one thing I always think about is incumbent upon our churches to really teach our kids the history. It's incumbent upon our families to really be the core of where our education comes from when it comes dealing with our Black history. Right now, teachers need more. They have way more to worry about than making sure. Our teachers have way more to worry about as they're not getting paid enough. They barely have enough money to pay for supplies. And what we need to do in Tallahassee is fight for them to have freedom in their curriculum and backtrack on this Stop Woke bill. So that's what I'm fighting for. I talked about it on the floor in Tallahassee, and I'm going to continue to fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. What are your plans to ensure that Black history is not erased from school curriculum?
Well, I am not convinced that it is being erased. I think that's a little rhetoric there. What I want to say is that I agree with my colleague in that I remember growing up in VBS, we were taught Black history. We didn't, and if you look at our Jewish neighbors, they have supplemental school called Hebrew school. They teach their own history. We need to go back to that in our families and in our churches. We need to teach Black history to our own family. But yes, I'm absolutely with that we need to make sure our history is front and center in our history books. Absolutely. I am not for, there's so many more issues that we could be talking about. How about, instead of farm shares, how about supporting our farmers to get more food back on the shelves? That's what I'm about. That's what, expanding the food bank, that's what I'm about. I want to see half a gallon, instead of a half a gallon,
Thank you.
a whole gallon.
Thank you very much. Ms. Stevens, I'm going to begin with you first. This one is a social issue, and it may be a sensitive topic for some. Do you feel a woman has a right to choose when it pertains to her reproductive choices? And please elaborate. And whenever the timekeeper gives you the cue.
Okay, if you are asking me if a woman has a right to have an abortion, yes, a woman has a right to have an abortion. That is our state law. That is our state law. I believe it's first trimester, 15 weeks, and that is our state law that has not changed by the striking of Roe v. Wade. And it's probably not going to change at all in the state of Florida. Am I a pro-life woman? Absolutely. I'm also a post-abortive woman. I have had an abortion. I understand trauma. I understand the emotional pain that comes with it. And to say, well, we have to give exceptions. Well, when we give those exceptions, please understand that a trauma does not cure another trauma. For the life of the mother, of course. But how many mothers who took the time, the heartache to try to get pregnant for 2 years is going to give up on the life of her child? So again, our abortion laws aren't going to change. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you. And Mr. Evans, do you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
Since 2010, the Republican Party has tried to ban abortions. And that is exactly what my Republican opponent would do if you vote for her. And it is a shame that we would say that. We have to fight against it. If women do not have their rights, how can we say we're a free state? Every single year, Republicans come and they try to do away with abortion entirely. You just saw them do away with Roe v. Wade. What do you think they're going to do next if we have people who will support pro-life instead of pro-choice? We need to make sure that we fight for our community and the rights for women, and I'm always going to fight for it. I've been to too many protests fighting for this issue, and I will continue to fight for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to another important topic, which is affordable housing. We know that our state legislature receives federal funds from HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department. At the federal level, those funds come down to the local level. Our local governments employ those for different programs, either to rehab homes, to build homes, things of that nature. Also at the state level, they have what are called SHIP funds to kind of help with some of those similar issues. But from the perspective of the state legislature, what additional methods can our legislature employ to address affordable housing? You'll have 1 minute to respond.
So really quick, there's a program called My Safe Florida. I want you all to know about that. My Safe Florida. It's a $10,000 grant. So that's free money to help you all repair any damages you may have to your homes. My Safe Florida. So we have this fund in Tallahassee called the Sadowski Fund, but the real name is the State Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And they try to get people confused by calling it Sadowski, but always remember it's dedicated to our housing. We put $300 million in it because our Republican colleagues wanted to cut it by 2/3. It was almost $1 billion budget, but our Republican colleagues cut it to $300 million. Now, $300 million does sound like a lot, but understand that we're about to put a $200 million bond here in Palm Beach County. That is almost 80% of what the state legislator did. So that is almost 1% of the total $109 billion budget. So we're going to continue to fight for money to come back down to West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County. The most important thing we can do is fight for first-time home buyer programs, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. What methods can the state legislature employ to address affordable housing?
Number one is we need to get into the Sandowski Fund, the trust fund, the housing trust fund. Every time you buy a home, or anytime anyone has bought a home, there is money from that sale going into that trust fund. That is money that has been rated by colleagues on both sides, Republican and Democrat, to put into the operating fund. We need to get into that operating fund because it's not just homeowners that, yes, we want to help first-time home buyers get into homes, whatever, but we're also on the verge of a serious rental crisis. How many people have had their rents go up? Mine, myself, has gone up $300, and I've been there 3 years. And I'm lucky. Okay, there are some people, I've talked to people out in the field, they're living in their cars while they're trying to find a place to live. And the second thing is we need to stop the people that are coming into the state, the corporations that are coming to the state, they are buying up the inventory. So first-time home buyers, how are they going to get those homes if we don't stop that? And that's something that the legislature can do.
Thank you. No, but you can comment in your closing statement. Okay. If there are any audience questions, will you please raise your note card and it will be collected. Okay, there's one in the back. And I'm going to just ask a question. Our state legislature is hyper partisan. So how do you work across the aisle to ensure that funding is coming back to Palm Beach County? Ms. Stevens, you were the last speaker, I believe. I'll start with you.
One of the things that we need to recognize, again, the Republicans are in control of our legislature. That's not me, that's the Republicans that are in control of our legislature. Are we really going to sit for the next 2 years looking in, while other groups, the Asians, the Hispanics, have decided to take a seat at that table to try to influence the Republicans? We need to influence the Republicans. We need to bring our needs to that table. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Do I walk lockstep with the Republicans? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If anything, if you can ask my mother about this, it's kind of hard for them to get me to do what I want to. People ask me, oh, you one of those MAGA Republicans? No. You know what I am? I'm bougie. I'm a middle-class woman, and I want my middle-class life back. And that's what I want to go to Tallahassee to bring our lives back, our economic lives back.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, you'll also have 1 minute to
What was the question? I'm so sorry.
Sure. Now you got anything, what did I write? We know that in the legislature, it is hyper-partisan. So what will you do to ensure that you're working across the aisle to bring funding back to Palm Beach County?
All right, that's a great question. What will I do to make sure I bring funding back to Palm Beach County? I told you guys I've been elected for 6 months, right? So I got elected March 8th. So in 6 months, I made history. I brought back $1 million already to Riviera Beach. No other legislator have done this in a quicker amount of time than I have. So what I can tell you is I'm just getting started. I got $1 million now within 6 months. If you give me 2 more years, I can count on it. I'm gonna bring home a lot more millions of dollars to make sure that we have good resources here for Palm Beach County. So thank you.
Thank you. We do have one audience question, so I'll direct this question to you first, Mr. Edmonds.
Yes, ma'am.
What should equity look like, sound like, feel like for Black students as we move from, I guess, race theory, or from theory to implementation, not race theory. Let me repeat that again. What should equity look like, sound like, feel like for Black students as we move from theory to implementation?
For Black students?
Yes.
In my district, I have schools like Roosevelt, Kennedy, Palm Beach Lakes, and what for me, my personal opinion, y'all just asking me, not just an overall definition of equity. we need to fund our schools and make them A schools, and we got to put as much money as possible to make it an A school. I'm not trying to compare how much the white colleagues get compared to Hispanic colleagues. I want to put as much money as we can to make sure it's an A school. We got to put as much money as possible to make sure our teachers are being paid well, that they don't have to take money out of their pockets to go buy paper, right? And that's what equity is to me, making sure that we get every piece of that pie, not just the crumbs, not just what's called equity or 60%. I want everything for our kids, and that's what equity means to me.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you'll be next. What should equity look like, sound like, feel like for Black students as we move from theory to implementation?
What we should concentrate on is equality. It's very different. And what I'd like to see done is that we give our students horizons, that they see something outside of their home, outside of their environment, that there are other schools beyond theirs, that there are other workplaces beyond where they maybe have a teenage job, and other circumstances. I want to see the horizons open up their eyes. If we could introduce entrepreneurship in the schools, if we could introduce into the curriculum innovation that show them the Black inventors that came up with things, and take them out to places like some of the fancy restaurants that maybe they've never been. When I worked out in the Glaze, there was some that had spent their whole 17 years never having seen the ocean, and they live an hour away. Imagine that. And they said, Ms. Stevens, you don't get it. You're not from the coast. You from the coast. You don't know. We need to give those students horizons.
Thank
and
you.
that's what I'd like.
We have a second audience question. I'm going to attempt to paraphrase this. Either what can be done to ensure, I guess, that former inmates or felons' votes can be reinstated? So I guess the question is talking about what's been done for inmates to help them to vote. So if you can maybe speak towards any type of legislation or policy that you would propose to maybe deal with some of the fallout from the changes with Amendment 4, just to ensure that those who did formerly, went to prison had a chance to actually have their rights restored.
So there's a gentleman named Desmond Meade in South Florida. If you know Desmond Meade, he's actually been paying for those returning, I hate the word felons, returning citizens, to come back and get their rights restored, and paying that amount. So working with him, making sure he has the funding to make sure that those who are returning citizens, they can pay whatever fees they need to pay to start voting. But most importantly, fighting for Amendment 4 again, and also those who have non-violent offenses like possession of marijuana. We need to wipe some of those or expunge some of those cases. We're making billions and billions and billions of dollars off the medical marijuana industry, and we got hundreds and thousands of Black men locked up for those same charges. So not only do we need to make sure our felons get their rights to vote back, but we need to do away with some of those charges that are non-violent offenses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, do you need me to, I guess, paraphrase this, or do you
Paraphrase
recall?
a little bit
Okay.
for me.
So I'll take from Mr. Evans to give the correct terminology. What policy or legislation would you propose to ensure that returning citizens' rights are restored, given the fallout or just the changes with Amendment 4 and even
Right.
some of what we've seen recently with the arrest of individuals who may have previously served and registered to vote?
I am absolutely for reforming our justice system, that nonviolent offenses, like what Mr. Evans talked about, is that if you are arrested for marijuana, and we now have medical marijuana for sale in these dispensaries, yes, we need to expunge some of these records, absolutely. What our current laws state is that felons can vote if they're nonviolent felons. Am I for going beyond that? No, not at this time. Maybe on a case-by-case level. I happen to know that State Representative Caruso has helped many people down in the Delray area get, actually, one young man who had a felony record. He is now a police officer for the Delray Beach Police. So I'd like to see that maybe we expunge some of these records and we try to recruit these people into our law enforcement so they can impart their knowledge or their experience to other young people to keep them out of trouble.
Thank you. And it's also worth noting today, I'm working from memory, that our president is looking to pardon individuals that have offenses for marijuana at certain levels. I don't remember all the all the specifics, but there was a comment made that perhaps, people may lobby their state legislatures to kind of do away with those offenses at the state level. So just something you all both kind of touched upon this. So just something to kind of research on your own as a voter and as a resident of the state of Florida. We will now move to our closing statements from both candidates. You each will have 2 minutes. Ms. Stevens, I will begin with you first.
I want to thank the society for inviting me here today. I know not many of my Republican colleagues have responded to the League of Women Voters, but I felt that it was very important to do so. Gotta reach out. But I also want to let you know that District 88 goes beyond just the black community, just beyond Riviera Beach and West Palm Beach. Because of redistricting, we are now grafted onto Lake Park, Royal Palm Beach, the suburbs out west. There are so many more people now in this district. And what I want to see is an economic future for all of us. I want to see us come out of this economic crisis, this terrible policies coming out of Washington, D.C. that we have to fight against. And if I have to use the power, my influence on the Republican Party to get your relief, I'm going to do that. And I think you can believe me when I say that. And I'm making a promise. You can trust what I say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmonds, you will also have 2 minutes for closing statements.
This is Las Novias Society, correct?
Correct.
I'm not, okay, I'm just making sure I'm not crazy. Y'all, can we give a round of applause for all the members of Las Novias Society, please? While our Republican colleagues are trying to take away our rights to votes for all these people in this room, y'all are here and making a difference and making sure y'all know who's the right candidate to serve you all. And that, I appreciate it. So I've been honored to serve you only for 6 months. Yes, we have put people back to work through our job fairs. Yes, we have fed families through our farm shares. Yes, we have brought home $1 million to the city of Riviera Beach to clean the water. But y'all, that's just the start. We also have another healthcare fair coming up, but that's all just the start for me. I'm learning, I'm growing. I always ask questions so I can learn from my community and what they need to have, what we need to do in Tallahassee to serve you all. And many times you all don't actually know what happens in Tallahassee, but if you don't know what's happening in Tallahassee, you can always know that I can promise you that I'm giving you all my blood, sweat, and tears up every single night trying to fight the good fight. We have to drive 6 to 7 hours back and forth to Tallahassee. And while we're doing that, all I'm doing is thinking about a game plan. How are we gonna get laws passed? How are we gonna fight for black folks? I have a black agenda. I would love to talk to you about it. I wanna make sure we got more black home ownership in my district, right? Riviera Beach is about less than 20% of home ownership. And I just wanna make a comment, redistricting, we always had Lake Park, Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach in my district. The only addition now is Royal Palm Beach. And outside of that, I'm focused on my black folks, all right? I'm making laws for black people. I'm bringing money home for black people. And that's what matters most to me. So thank you all so much for your support and all that you have done to get me this far. It's because of you that I'm here. I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for it. Thank you so much for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. I ran into her at church. So thank y'all so much, and God bless y'all. Thank you.
Thank you to both of our candidates for joining us this evening and sharing with us your platform. And although they did not have enough time to fully address all the issues, both of them do have websites, and you all are encouraged to continue to read about both candidates to make an informed decision. As we move on from this particular candidate forum, we did have a video submitted by Florida Senator Bobby Powell, who had a conflict this evening. And that video will be displayed for your viewing.
Good evening to the members of Las Novias Society and to all of the people attending tonight, this great community forum. Thank you for providing an opportunity to educate our community with regard to the upcoming election on November 8th. Of course, I'm on the ballot. I am running for State Senate District 24. I currently serve you as your state senator for District 30. I often tell you that a life of service is a life that counts. And now more than ever, we have to make sure that we're standing up for the people here in the state of Florida and in our own communities. Recently, in Tallahassee, we have had 2 special sessions, one dealing directly with property insurance and the other based on congressional redistricting, where the governor drew his own maps. And many people will tell you that that was okay, but it's not. We need equal and fair representation. We need to make sure that some of these things that are happening in Tallahassee are not just a party line vote for Republicans and Democrats. I will tell you that recently in Tallahassee, a lot of things have gone wrong, and it's up to us to continue to fight to fix them. The good thing is, I'm here to fight with you. And some of the people who you will see tonight are going back to Tallahassee to fight. But we have other people who are running for office that will fight for you in your local community, and you will be educated about those people tonight. I will tell you, this battle is bigger than me and bigger than you. We need all of us to work together to make sure that change happens, not just here, but in the state of Florida and this nation. We need to make sure that history includes all of the facts that actually happen. We need to make sure that women have a right to choose. We need to make sure that there are no books being banned in our schools because it prevents the opportunity for children to learn. We need to make sure that we stop the gerrymandering that has continued to happen in the state of Florida. And we need to make sure that we send fighters back into these public office and into these public trusts to fight for us. My name is State Senator Bobby Powell. I will tell you that a life of service is a life that counts. Thank you, Los Novias Society. Thank you, community. And thank you all for this great opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I'm looking forward to you all having a great forum. I apologize for not being there, but just know that I'm with you in spirit.
Political advertisement paid for and approved by Bobby Powell, Democrat for State Senate District 24.
All right, and thank you again to Senator Powell. Hopefully each of you have had a chance to grab a voter guide provided by the League of Women Voters. It's a very informative guide that gives you information. It's nonpartisan, so it doesn't tell you who to vote for. It simply presents information submitted by candidates, and it also addresses and informs you about the various judicial races and also some of the ballot initiatives. And I wanted to make a few points this evening. Just as a reminder, everyone knows Election Day, right? Okay, so when is Election Day? Perfect. And you all know that early voting starts 2 weeks before Election Day. So this year, that will be October the 24th until November the 6th on Election Day, and as well as during the early voting period, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You may vote at any early voting site in Palm Beach County as long as you are a registered voter. So if you are not sure you're registered to vote, please see the League of Women Voters in the back. If you need to update your signature, if you have moved, if you need to update your party affiliation, you can take care of that ahead of the October 11th deadline. Early voting will be at a total of 21 sites throughout the county. They are listed in the guide on page 31. You also have the option to also vote by mail. I've been requesting my ballot by mail for literally the last 8 to 10 years. It's just convenient for me. I prefer to take mine to the Supervisor of Elections office. You can also drop it at any early voting site, or you can place it in the mail. I don't personally trust the U.S. Postal Service right now, so I want to make sure my ballot gets in the hands of the election staff. On their website at votepalmbeach.gov, or you can go to the old pbcelections.com website. You can track where your mail ballot is located. I personally never had an issue, but not everyone feels comfortable, so you do what works for you and your household. Again, you can make your request to receive that vote by mail ballot now. You can call them, you can do a submission online, and you can call to confirm that it's being received. It is a very, very easy process. Again, when you go to vote, make sure that you have current and acceptable identification. That includes a Florida driver's license, meaning it can't be tampered with. You also can bring state ID, which is the non-driver's license version of the identification that the state utilizes. You can use your passport or a combination of photo ID and signature. I work in a precinct, so like when I'm working with the members of my chapter, we are reviewing. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to vote. So make sure that you have your current precinct. We had several people to show up to JFK Middle, and they were not assigned there anymore because of redistricting. You get moved around a lot, so make sure that you know your precinct in advance if you plan to vote on Election Day. Also, the ballot. It is two-sided. I printed my sample ballot that looks like this. So it has all the races on the first page, And the second page has a list of all of the ballot initiatives. There are a total of 3 constitutional amendments from the state of Florida. All 3 were proposed by your state legislature. And then we also have 2 county questions. So I'll just kind of briefly walk through those. We also have a total of 2 judicial areas, right? One is for the state Supreme Court, and also we have the 4th District Court of Appeals. And essentially these are what they refer to as merit retention races. They're simply asking, do you want to retain this judge? Yes or no. It's a little tricky to find information about judges because they can't campaign in the same way our school board candidates can or members of the state legislature. But there is some information such on Ballotpedia. You might be able to Google to find some information about cases. I tend to ask attorneys that I may personally know or ask friends who may have some type of interaction. I just ask that you all just do your due diligence because it's going to ask you for all these judges, do you want to keep them or not? How you vote, again, is your preference. Again, there are a total of 5 ballot initiatives that are on the second page of your ballot. Every voter in Palm Beach County will cast a vote or has the opportunity to cast a vote for the second page. And a few of these impact homeowners. So if you're a renter, you're not paying what we call ad valorem taxes or property taxes, but you have a say in these various county programs. So the first 3 are Amendments 1, 2, and 3. Amendment 1 is asking you, the voter, to limit the assessed value on your home for certain improvements to prevent flooding. Essentially, it's saying that you may not pay higher taxes for those various improvements. It won't add to the value of your home. Either you vote yes or no. Again, this is sponsored by the Florida State Legislature. Amendment 2 is asking voters to eliminate the Constitutional Revision Commission. This is a body that has members appointed by the governor, also the legislature, and I think it may be judicial, I might be wrong on that one, but essentially they come together every 20 years to vet and recommend changes and revisions to our state constitution. This last time was a debacle, I'm not gonna lie, because it was very partisan, but this is one of 3 ways that we have changes to our state constitution. Again, that comes to the CRC, the Constitutional Revision Commission. We also can use the ballot initiative, I'm sorry, not ballot, but the petition. So sometimes you'll have people to say, I have a petition. If you're a registered voter, can you sign this petition so that they can get enough signatures to get an item added to the ballot for some type of referendum? And then the state legislature is the other way that they can propose changes to the Constitution. Essentially, the state legislature is asking you to vote to or eliminate them. So they're asking you, do you want to or not? So that is the Amendment 2. Amendment 3 is adding a new homestead exemption in the amount of $50,000 for certain public employees. This is a sample list, but not the full list. That includes classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, EMTs, etc. And essentially, if you vote in favor of this, it will give an additional $50,000 exemption with the exception of school board. You don't get an exemption on that, but for county and your city, for when they levy whatever the millage is against your real property, it will limit the amount of income, so that could potentially be an impact on services in your community. So just something to think about. But again, the league's guide gives you all some good information of what a yes vote will do and what a no vote will do. Again, there are 2 county questions. County question 1 is asking you, the voter, to consider a $200 million bond to help address affordable housing in Palm Beach County by acquiring, constructing, and equipping of residential units. That's both for homeowners and also renters. Again, the bond will be in place for 20 years. So again, it will levy mills against real property. So you think if you have a home or you have a second home, real property. And again, county question 2 pertains to the school district. It is to permit the school board to continue to levy 1 meal to fund certain operations that have been in place since 2018. This includes school police, mental health programs, improved teacher pay, so on and so forth. So again, I just ask that you all take the time to walk through it. You guys are hearing the information here tonight, so I also would encourage you to reach out to your friends, your neighbors, call a cousin, ensure that they take the time to actually vote the entire ballot. Oftentimes people vote during the presidential year just for those first few, and in the gubernatorial next year they'll vote for those first few, but you've heard here tonight, Our school board race is highly important. We talk about affordable housing, but you know, if you don't have affordable housing, you can't help the teacher. They don't have a place to stay, and it's a trickle effect. County commission makes decisions that impact homeowners, non-homeowners, and businesses, so it's all interwoven. So I just encourage you all to use this guide. Print your sample ballot out. You can take this in the ballot with you. I tend to use my ballot and I do it at home and then I go and turn mine in. But you can take information to help you make your final decision in the booth at the precinct. So hopefully you all have found this evening to be very insightful. I do thank you all for attending tonight. And I want to thank Las Novias for allowing me to be here to moderate and also just to impart some information as you all prepare to vote in November. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like the members of Las Novias Society to please stand. We've mentioned that name quite a bit, but maybe there are some of you who do not know who we are. We are some of the members of Las Novias Society. Thank you so very much. My name is Margaret Jack, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to close this forum by thanking our candidates for their participation in our democratic process. Thanks also to you, our voters, for participating this evening. I'd like to personally thank Ms. Robin Lawrence for serving as our moderator this evening. She did a fantastic job, and this is a token of appreciation from Las Novias for you. Special thanks again to you, our voters. Special thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Young Leaguers. Last but not least, thanks to Reverend Tyson and the members of St. John Missionary Baptist Church. Your hospitality has been awesome. So would you be kind enough to make sure that they receive that token of appreciation? As you exit the building this evening, we realize that some of you came here straight from work. So we have a little token of appreciation for you. It's just a small snack, but include